What's going on, everybody? My name is Hao Vu, and this is the Hao Vu Moto Vlog. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today's episode is about my trip to Yosemite National Park on my 2020 Honda CBR500R. You guys already know. It was my first big trip, especially in terms of distance. The most furthest I've traveled away from home, the longest I've been on the seat of the motorcycle on any given day for sure, by far. The first day was just a light day, was just travel from my house to Sonora, a little town called Sonora, California, just to stay the night so I could break down that drive time a little more so I wouldn't be so exhausted because it is a lot to see in one day. It's a lot of riding. So that first day was about 90 miles, 2 hours, and then, spent the night, woke up early, and then it was about 75 miles from Sonora into the entrance of the park. That ended up taking a long time as well. It's not like these freeway miles, where you can just burn through 75 miles in no time. Generally, just in that area, it's more remote and mountainous and rural. So, it does take quite a bit of time to travel these shorter distances, especially once I got inside the park. The speed limit is like 35, even 25 in some cases, even 15 in some cases. So, it takes a while to traverse all the different destinations in the park. My itinerary was I went across the park on Tioga Highway, a very scenic route that goes from west to east, east to west. And that took about 2 hours, so 4 hours round trip. And then I wanted to see Yosemite Valley, which is kind of like where everyone goes. And then also Glacier Point, where you get a nice panoramic view, really high up of all the major attractions in the park, all the things that you want to see, Half Dome, El Capitan, and the waterfalls. And you can even see some of the trails and the valleys and stuff like that. So very, very cool, very scenic, very beautiful. Tried to take it all in, just really just be there, be present. It's fun because every breath you take, in the motorcycle helmet, it's just like filled with this fresh mountainous air. You can smell the trees, and it's just quite an experience. You got to be there to like smell it. You can't have that kind of experience anywhere close to the city. So that's why I really love being so close to, relatively close to the Sierra Nevada mountain range. It's just it's very serene being up there, and almost even, I would say, a meditative experience for me because, a lot of the times in the car, I'm just, my mind is drifting and before I know it, I'll just be somewhere around town and I'll be like, how did I get here? I was just lost in thought on complete autopilot. But being up there in the mountains in the national park, not only is it unfamiliar territory, but it's just, when I'm riding around these bends in the forest, basically riding around either on top of a mountain or in a forest the whole entire time, So can't afford to really drift off. Really have to be present, for every corner and, every bend. So, that was a good experience for me. I really liked it. I will say that the Honda did really well on the trip, I've said before that it's more of a sport tourer than a true sport bike. I stand behind that, with its kind of upright seating position, upright-ish, for a sport bike. Definitely, it's up there in terms of comfort. It's certainly not like a super sport bike where you really have to be hunched over really low to ride it properly, to ride it how it was designed to be ridden. But this bike, it's obvious that they had commuting in mind. It's obvious that they had even maybe long-ish distances in mind as well. Of course, I probably would have been super comfortable on an adventure bike with a tall, vertical windscreen, perfectly upright seating posture, or even like a naked bike, with the true handlebars to sit up front. I mean, that would have made all the difference in the world, when you're on the bike 13 hours. But I will say that all things considered for this sport bike, it did well, and I'd do it again, and that the bike is not going to stop me from going on trips like this. 13 hours in one day, 12 hours really, on Monday, sorry. On Monday, 12 hours in the seat of that motorcycle. Definitely took many breaks, of course, to enjoy the scenery and have lunch and all that, but 12 hours is a long time to be spending in the seat. Towards the end of the day, on my ride home, it was about a 4.5 hour ride home, and it was grueling. I will tell you that. After that much riding, it was grueling. So yeah, I will say that if I were on a bike that was dedicated to that kind of thing, touring and adventuring, I probably wouldn't have been tired at all, or just very minimally tired. But given the sport bike, given the seat, it was tiring, and it took a lot of willpower for me to just not pull over and spend the night in a hotel. I told myself I was going to get home. I made the stops when I needed to, and I'll tell you, when you've been riding for that long, all day, hours and hours, even a 5-minute break off the bike makes such a big difference. It just, it recharged me for like just a 5-minute trip, at a gas station or a rest stop or something. I could go for another hour, even 2 hours in some cases. I'm shifting around a lot, on the bike. Everything was sore pretty much, but, sometimes on the highway, I would scoot my butt all the way back and go into a full tuck, where my head's under the windscreen and my chest is on the tank, and, just cutting through the highway, cutting through the wind like a hot knife through butter. And it also gave my butt a rest, put a lot less pressure on my butt. My left hand gets kind of numb and crampy. It's funny, my throttle hand never messes up at all, but my left hand I've noticed gets a little crampy, like the left side of my shoulder blade and my back gets a little cramped up. And just little things like that, my knees a little bit, and I would stretch out. I would even stand up on the pegs sometimes, when I'm riding, and just kick my legs open to get a full stretch, but, just get creative. But like I said, the bike did great. I'm super happy with her. I kissed the tank when we got home, just as like my appreciation that, I kind of think of the bike as just a living, breathing thing, made of energy, just like everything else, made of love, or just someone's energy and thought and time went into it. So it's just, it's just a transformation of energy. That's how I look at it. And she did great riding around that park under 50 miles per hour for hours. The gas mileage was phenomenal. At one point, it read 105 miles average per gallon. I remember filling up in the middle of the day, and one bar didn't disappear on the gas tank, on the fuel gauge, until 110 miles. That was absolutely crazy. She was just sipping gas. We were chugging along, enjoying ourselves in the park. It was just really, really great. So, if you're wondering if the Honda CBR500R can do that kind of thing, I think it all depends on you. I mean, obviously you got to know it's not going to be as comfortable, but it's a compromise. When you buy a bike, you make compromises. If you straight up only want to go tour, then buy a touring motorcycle, and then buy a motorcycle that's designed to give you a comforting experience for hours and hours and hours upon end. If you want to go off-road, buy an off-road bike. Just understand you're always going to have to make compromises. So ask yourself, when you're choosing your bike, why are you choosing this bike? Why do you think that you're choosing this bike? Is it because it looks good? Is it because of the price? Is it because you think it's going to be really good for touring? For me, it was a mix of looking good, price, and just overall, I guess, practicality. Is why I went with the 500R. And, I definitely said that I wanted to tour on it. I wanted to see California, but, the reason I didn't go for a dedicated touring bike is because I really like the look of the sport bike, and I figured with its higher set handlebars, I could make it work for the kind of trips that I'm doing. I'm not doing cross country. That would be a little unrealistic. But just these long day trips, my body is up to it. I'm pretty healthy. I'm pretty conscious about, my posture, and, I take a lot of time outside of my motorcycle riding to just make sure I'm staying in shape and making sure that I'm addressing my physical weaknesses or imbalances and just really trying to be better physically all around. And I think, that makes it better. That translates well when I'm in the seat of the motorcycle, because when you're riding the motorcycle, no matter what kind of bike it is, if you have issues, they're not going to get any better once you're sitting in that seat for 12 hours, right? They're only going to get worse. They're only going to get magnified. If you have slight back pain just sitting at your desk at work, what do you think is going to happen when you're riding the bike for 3 hours? If you have slight knee pain just sitting on the couch watching TV, like what do you think is going to happen? Those things are just going to expose themselves, and magnify the longer you're on the bike. So it's not really the bike's issue. You can get the most comfortable bike in the world, but if you don't address your tight muscles or your muscle imbalances or your muscle weaknesses or your just, your lack of body awareness and posture, then, it's going to be uncomfortable when you're riding for that long, just plain and simple. You can blame it on the seat, you can blame it on the handlebars or whatever, but, there's a lot you can do before you blame it on the bike in general, And I truly believe that, before you blame it on the slow bike, are you even as technically as proficient as a rider as you could be, So that's how I tend to look at it. But that's really all I have, guys. Actually, I did want to talk about the Amazon Basics motorcycle bag that I bought. It was about $50, and it's really well made. It's just kind of small, but the sport bike seat is kind of small. There's not a lot of real estate up there. It's slightly bigger than the seat, maybe like 10-15% bigger than the seat, but it fits on there well. I buckled it on, to each side of the passenger foot pegs and then wrapped it up around the fender. And it fit everything I need for an overnight trip. I'm not high maintenance. I'm not a diva or anything like that by any means. But I just put a t-shirt, some underwear, some socks, my 40-ounce hydro flask. The first night I packed some cherries to eat at the hotel, and then I stuffed a Gatorade bottle in there, cookies, GoPro batteries, microfiber towel, cables, sunglasses. I mean, it had everything I needed. And I stopped for lunch. If I were like packing food for overnight, definitely it wouldn't have been enough. You do have to eat out. But I'm happy with the quality of the bag. It's super sturdy. It's easy to unbuckle and carry around with this little strap. And it worked out, and it's going to work out really well for what I intend to do with it, just these day trips and potentially overnight trips, quick little overnight trips. So, yeah, guys, that was my experience in Yosemite. I hope you enjoyed some of the footage, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys.